From ancient times, there existed an entity called primordial intelligence that created this universe. This entity was soon divided into two halves, representing thought and action. They fought fiercely for creation to the point of no return and created chaos. From this, many races emerged, all seeking fragments of intelligence to gain wisdom. But among them, one called Terrorblade looked into the chaos and found the truth. He had the idea of unifying thought and action to recreate everything into the hell he had imagined. Back to the present, a squad of humans is now fighting to combat a dragon. It's causing difficulty for the entire squad. But that is until the protagonist Davian shows up. He puts on his helmet and brandishes his sword, then rushes alone to face the dragon. The dragon is completely neutralized by Davian. He uses ropes and starts tying them around its body, forcing it to burrow into the ground. But he descends into the tunnel to face it again. He skillfully strikes it once and starts climbing up, repeatedly stabbing it until it completely collapses. The others then descend to assess the situation. They discover dead baby dragons nearby. It seems the hatchlings suddenly went mad and tore each other apart. Davian then discovers a hole that seems to have been dug by a dangerous creature. They should consider themselves lucky not to encounter it, as it is currently dormant. Davian then brings back the dragon's head and advises the squad commander to be less bloodthirsty and to be happy they are alive, and not to be foolish enough to disturb the boss sleeping in that cave. But it seems the commander intends to ignore Davian's warning, calling him a coward. Davian then returns to town with his partner Bram, greeted by the cheering townsfolk, as the dragon has been eliminated. However, the losses from that battle are not something everyone can rejoice over. Davian goes to comfort and encourage the family of a fallen soldier. He gives the soldier's son a dragon's tooth and encourages him to be proud of his father and to continue the dream of becoming a dragon-slaying hero like his father. The entire army then goes to a banquet drinking heavily. Bram continues to recount Davian's deeds while Davian goes to get another round for everyone. He finds a girl buying something before him, so he lets her go first. She orders 2 beers, but complains about the taste, so Davian pays for her. The owner then offers Davian's drinks for free because of his dragon-slaying feat, but that commander mocks Davian for leaving the boss in the cave without killing it. He reminds the commander that not even 20 people could defeat the boss down there, so don't be stupid enough to wake it up. If he wipes out the army, the people here will die too. Meanwhile, the girl from before has returned to a table with a partner. The two meet a hooded man to exchange and buy information. The man knows this girl is a princess, so he demands a higher price or no deal. But she has just given him her crown when someone in the tavern approaches the hooded man to cause trouble. The hooded man is revealed to be an elf, which is why he is looked down upon by the humans here. Davian comes to resolve the situation. He takes the man outside and lets the elf leave. During this time, the commander is drinking when some evil force incites and provokes anger within him. From there, this entity has taken over his mind and decides to go provoke the boss in that cave. The next morning, Davian wakes up next to a girl. Suddenly, Bram rushes to find him and report that the commander has lost his mind and is demanding to go kill the boss. Davian decides to go find him. He asks Bram to go to the fortress and call for reinforcements in case of need. Davian leaves while Bram cuts some blood from his hand to activate a magic circle and teleport away. Davian arrives at the cave and descends to find the commander has already dealt with the boss, as he had grown old and weak, not as strong as he feared. But he soon realizes that it is not the commander, but a powerful entity controlling him. The entity mentioned Davian's painful past to awaken his hatred for dragons. This entity could give him the power he needed to exterminate all dragons. But at this moment, the Fire Dragon King arrived. It was disappointed that the Earth Dragon King had grown so old and weak that it was easily defeated. It spat fire to incinerate the commander. This gave Davian a chance to survive, as it was not in the mood to eat today. However, that entity had transferred to the Earth Dragon's corpse. The two dragons then lunged at each other, attacking. Both spat fire at each other and then jumped to bite and tear. The Earth Dragon rushed, directly injuring the Fire Dragon, but the Fire Dragon got up again and bit the Earth Dragon's neck. Davian took the opportunity to rush forward and stab the Earth Dragon's weak point to help the Fire Dragon destroy it. The Fire Dragon showed respect for Davian. However, it was now severely wounded and near death. It knew that Davian's impending fate would not be difficult, so it used its claw to slice Davian's neck and told him not to hate it for the misfortunes to come. The princess and her subordinate had discovered Davian lying in the forest. She left a coat for Davian, knowing he would not be happy upon waking. Previously, when Davian was injured by the dragon, he had dragged himself, but on the way, he was intercepted by bandits who stripped him of all his possessions. He now wakes up and finds the princess again. He had barely regained consciousness when he fainted once more. That night, Davian woke up again and the princess asked whose blood was on his neck. He thought it was his own. He didn't clearly remember what had happened in the cave, only that there were 2 dragons and that both were dead. He then asked the princess's name and she revealed it was Marana, and he realized she was from Night Silver Woods. But she was no longer the princess of that place. In the following days, Davian went along with Marana's group and arrived at a new town. He mentioned that he knew an innkeeper there, so they could find temporary lodging. When they arrived at the inn, he apologized to Marana because the place was quite run down, but at least the innkeeper still remembered him and agreed to arrange 2 rooms and some clothes for him to wear. That night, while drinking, Marana went to look for the innkeeper to ask about the location of the black market. Davian wanted to go along as Marana's bodyguard, but he was drunk and suddenly threw up a ring. Someone in the tavern recognized this as his comrade's ring. A few days ago, he heard rumors that his comrade was killed. The body disappeared and only Davian's dragon slayer armor was at the scene. He started calling Davian a cannibal and started causing trouble, forcing Davian to kick him out. He then fainted again, and when he woke up, the two women had already gone to the black market. The innkeeper had to ask Davian to leave because he could bring trouble to the inn. Davian respected the innkeeper and wanted to borrow a sword before leaving, but he had none to give. Meanwhile, Marana and her maid had arrived at the black market to find the person the elf had previously passed information to. She was soon taken to meet the owner of the place, and surprisingly the elf from before was there. He tricked her into bringing her back because he had a deal with her uncle. She regretted not having let the villagers kill him earlier. The black market owner then captured the two. Davian, at this moment, went to a forge to inquire about buying a sword, but he had only this ring to pay. However, the owner knew who he was and what would happen if he accepted this ring. Nevertheless, he was willing to sell Davian a sword if he had coins, and was also kind enough to tell him where he could get them quickly. Meanwhile, Marana was about to be separated from her maid, but, unfortunately, for the people in the black market, the maid was their strongest weapon. The maid easily dealt with the people there and left Marana to deal with the elf. She forced him to reveal the real information she needed. He was afraid of Marana's maid, so he had to confess and warned her that the place she was going was not safe for her at all. But she didn't care. Davian at this moment went to earn money by gambling. He won nothing, so he had to return empty-handed. As for Marana, she had gone with her maid to a shop. She knew the shopkeeper specialized in locating treasures and needed to find some kind of lotus flower. The man knew who she was and the lotus treasure she was looking for. He knew someone who could help her, a sage who lived in a tower in the southern valley. The shopkeeper gave her a stone that could help her find this person, and he only asked that she repay him when she regained her princess status. She then went to look for Davian and invited him to go with her, but he wanted to stay to face the man who had beaten him last night, as he said he would bring his gang to settle scores with him at noon. Davian was the type of person who would not run from a fight, so he refused to flee with her. He thought running away would be an insult to his honor. She thought he was a fool and left. The maid gave Davian a small knife as a little help before leaving. She then went into the forest and summoned her mount, but the maid realized that the bandits had come looking for Davian. The maid wanted to help him and convinced Marana to lend a hand. Davian was now facing the leader of this group alone. The two sides engaged in combat, and Davian's technique was still slightly better than his, but he called his subordinates to advance and attack Davian. He was cut in the back and stabbed, causing him to collapse, but Marana from above fired arrows with such precision that they pierced the head of each man. Still, at this moment, Davian suddenly transformed and turned into a monster. He continuously tore apart every man he saw until only the last informant remained. He had picked up Davian's glowing blade to defend himself. Davian looked at the blade and remembered who he was, then transformed back into human. Marana and the maid rushed over and asked if he was alright. He didn't understand what had happened to him, but Marana wanted him to follow her or face the guards there. He followed her. She told him about her mission to find a sage. He decided to go with her and hoped that the sage would have knowledge about dragons and help him find a solution to his condition. Meanwhile, we know that the lotus flower Marana is looking for is currently in the hands of a group of elves. This elf had infiltrated Night Silver Woods, where Marana ruled, to steal this lotus flower. She was soon discovered and attacked by Marana. Marana unleashed a rain of arrows because the elf could create duplicates. When the real one was exposed, Marana managed to shoot only once, grazing the elf girl's hand. The reason the elf girl stole this flower was because she believed it would help her and her group return home. Over a week traveling with Marana, Davian constantly had nightmares and felt he could turn into a beast at any moment if he didn't wake up. He told Marana that he dreamed of dragons talking to him. He felt as if the dragons were inside his body. He could only hope that the sage she was looking for would give him a solution. Meanwhile, we discovered that those elves took the lotus to resurrect their god. They worshipped the moon god, who had been plunged into darkness by the dark moon goddess. Many still worshipped the dark moon goddess, although it was no different from placing faith in a demon. And the only way to bring back the moon goddess was through a wizard using this lotus to perform a ritual. The girl who had stolen the lotus flower then prepared to go find the wizard, but the entire group chose to go with her, whether she agreed or not. Back to Davian's group, they were now climbing a snowy mountain and had to tie themselves together in case they were swept away by the wind. They could still be pulled back by the mountain ahead, but soon after, the ground began to sink, causing Marana to fall. Her sudden fall meant that Davian and the mount could not pull her up in time. She was pulling more people down, so she decided to cut the rope to fall. She survived the fall, but was now separated from the group. Meanwhile, the elf girls group found the point they needed to reach. After a journey, they entered the wizard's dwelling. This place was hidden by a barrier, and inside was a vast field of flowers and a tower. The group had entered the tower and soon became separated. The girl went ahead without realizing she had separated from everyone else. Then she found the wizard, who asked how she had gotten there when no one had for hundreds of years. She just said she simply found it without any special technique. She introduced herself as Rin and brought the lotus flowers to ask him to resurrect the moon goddess. But he only took the lotus flowers and called her a thief, informed her that he could not resurrect the goddess because death was something that could not be interfered with. Then he teleported her and the group out of there. She now had almost lost all hope, as all her efforts had been in vain. Returning to Marana, she was now wandering in a snowstorm when she accidentally entered a cave. This cave surprisingly had a cannibal, and in self-defense, Marana had to kill him to survive. She asked for forgiveness from the gods and then was drawn by something inside. This thing also attracted other cannibal monsters. As she approached, she was suddenly awakened by a voice. As soon as she woke up, the monsters immediately targeted her. She ran out, but there too it was equally crowded. She closed her eyes and began to shoot arrows, but the overwhelming amount gradually put her in a difficult position. Luckily, Davian arrived in time to save her. Meanwhile, the elf girls group, Rin, found an assassin. She demanded the lotus flowers from her, but she no longer had them. The assassin did not believe her, so she killed Rin's friends right in front of her, making her flee in fear. But the assassin used her technique and found Rin's location, and fortunately, the wizard came to save him. He decided to change his mind and would try to help her resurrect the goddess. Marana had told Davian about the things she saw in the cave and thought that those monsters were even more soulless than Davian when he was in beast form. She then asked for permission to rest and asked Davian to watch over the monsters for her. The next day, Davian's group arrived at a nearby town and he noticed that Marana's hand was injured, so he took her to bandage it. He then gave her a bottle of wine to warm her body. He also said that if she had something on her mind, she could talk to him. But suddenly, both heard a noise outside the town, so they went to check. They found Caden, whom Davian knew was also a dragon knight like him, and he had just returned from hunting a dragon alone with almost no injuries. Then, he carried the dragon inside to butcher it. Davian felt strange seeing this scene, so he left. Davian had told Marana that he felt like hitting Caden upon seeing him butchering the dragon, and even at dinner, he didn't touch the meat dish as if he saw dragons as his kin. Later, Caden gave Marana a bag of dragon scales to help her descend the mountain more easily. He revealed that he came here to settle a debt. 20 years ago, he and 30 comrades came here to hunt dragons, but one night when the entire group was drinking, suddenly a dragon attacked, forcing the entire group to run to the city which was burning as if it were day. They found the dragon, but its power was immense. The commander who had taught him was incinerated instantly, and of the group of 30, only he survived. He had sworn revenge and had been hunting ever since. But when he found the nest, he only saw dragon corpses and a human corpse, along with this necklace of Davian. He thought Davian had accidentally entered the fire dragon's nest and upon witnessing its power, had fled in fear. Yes, the dragon he was looking for was the one Davian had encountered. He needed the information Davian had, but he could barely remember anything from his encounter with that dragon. Davian then left the dinner table and Marana asked what was wrong, as he had just met someone he admired. She thought this should have made him feel good, but he seemed even worse. He still thought he was fine, so Marana had to share with him her feelings when she was in that cave, that she had spent her entire life just running away. And it was only when she saw the scene in that cave that she realized what she needed. She kissed him on the forehead to bless Davian and then returned to her room. During this time, the sorcerer used a lotus flower to separate his soul and fly to find the dark moon goddess. She was currently killing one of her followers and absorbing the remaining life force to increase her power. The sorcerer arrived and it seemed they had known each other for a long time, but he had renounced his name and the goddess could do nothing against him. So, she planned to seduce him with her powers. Davian was dreaming of what happened in the cave when he suddenly woke up and was knocked out by Caden. Marana sensed this and rushed to look, finding Caden carrying Davian somewhere. He had taken Davian to the basement to trap him, as he knew the dragon was hidden inside him. He stabbed Davian's shoulder to force the dragon out. The dragon had to reveal itself and began to argue with Caden. He had waited 20 years to find and hunt him again, but he recognized him as the little mouse who had fled years ago and his 20 years of preparation would become insignificant. He then unleashed him to fight and indeed had prepared very well, wearing the armor of chaos that allowed him to move at extremely high speeds. Later, he was interrupted by Marana's group coming down, but he easily pushed them away. However, Marana managed to temporarily deactivate his armor. The dragon then grew and continued fighting. Marana's group, upon seeing this, fled while the dragon continuously pushed Caden into difficult positions, so he ran to attract the dragon into a difficult position to counterattack. The two then chased each other out and Marana worried that one of them would die because of this, but the dragon entered and took Marana's group away. We know that the sorcerer and the goddess were lovers. They had a child together, but lost him, and the sorcerer still hated the goddess because she forgot the child they lost. He decided to gather an army to fight her. He then left while the goddess, feeling very angry, descended to earth to find the assassin from before. She ordered the assassins to eliminate all elves who did not worship her. The dark moon goddess's army then gathered and was teleported to villages everywhere. The army gave the villagers a chance to submit to the goddess and lay down their weapons, but they chose to resist, so the army had to fight. After burning the village, the army took them to meet the dark moon goddess to see if she would accept them again. As for Marana's group, the dragon took her to where she needed to find the sage, but she could not see the tower anywhere. Davian woke up in a strange place at this time. He climbed to the top of the mountain and surprisingly discovered many other dragons there. They were high-level dragons like the fire dragon out there. They were surprised when he appeared there. The dragons informed Davian that the fire dragon was trying to fight Terrorblade, who was the one who had taken the commander's body and then the earth dragon's body before. Terrorblade was also hunting these dragons. Meanwhile, Marana discovered that the stake Caden had driven into Davian's shoulder was still stuck in the dragon's body, so she tried to pull it. But the stake woke the dragon and made it lose its mind, chasing and attacking her. Marana, her maid Marcy, and the mount then fell directly from the cliff. Davian, at this moment, tried to regain control, but failed. The dragons asked who he really was and why he was there. He couldn't remember. Then the dragon that seemed to be the leader of this group approached and helped him remember. The maid Marcy was injured at this time and Marana tried to take her away. But Marcy went back to get the stone Marana needed to find the sage. All three then fled and were constantly pursued by the fire-breathing dragon. They had to hide in a cave, but the dragon still breathed fire, forcing Marana to hit the rocks to collapse and block the fire. At this moment, Davian remembered that he had fought Terrorblade with the fire dragon, but then he killed him. However, the dragons believed that the fire dragon did it to avoid being possessed by Terrorblade like the earth dragon. Davian wanted them to take him back to prevent Marana and Marcy from being eaten. But the nature of dragons is to eat and he believed they would not help him. So, he offered to help them face Terrorblade. However, even saying that, they still had to ask him a question. Meanwhile, Marana found temporary shelter and bandaged Marcy's wounds. She then felt helpless because she couldn't find the sage's location. But Marcy realized that she only needed to look through the stone. She immediately knew the sage's location, but could only let the mountain Marcy follow while she stayed behind to distract the dragon. The dragons at this moment asked why Davian chose to help them when originally he was a dragon slayer, someone who had killed so many of their kind. What made them trust him? He thought that dragons were a threat to humans, but they argued that humans die for various different reasons. So why were only dragons seen as dangerous? He directly said that he hated dragons because they killed his father in his village, but still chose to fight alongside the fire dragon because he realized that Terrorblade's threat was greater than that of dragons. But the dragon still believed that he had to die if he wanted to officially resurrect the fire dragon. Meanwhile, the dragon had begun to corner Marana and was about to eat her. Davian had to tell the dragons to kill him if they wanted and find a way to save Marana. But at this moment, the fire dragon woke up and prevented the dragons from touching Marana. He recovered his body and then held Marana. He wanted to take her for treatment, but she showed him the location of the tower. Not long after, Rin realized they had visitors and the sorcerer also knew who they were. The sorcerer saw that both girls were seriously injured and refused to help. But the shopkeeper's stone that Marana had found earlier was actually an agreement for the sorcerer to make an effort to save both. Rin wanted to deal with Marana immediately because she was from Night Silver Woods and also a follower of that dark moon goddess. But the sorcerer stopped her. Meanwhile, the elves in the village who chose to follow the dark moon goddess had a kind of drug applied to their foreheads and, after reciting the oath, would be officially controlled by the goddess. Suddenly, some soldiers from Night Silver Woods returned with injuries all over their bodies. They were severely traumatized and panicked when they were asked about what they had seen in the forest. Davian had woken up at this moment. He had been teleported by the sorcerer to find him. He asked why he came here and Davian asked about the demon Terrorblade. But the sorcerer knew that the girl's wounds were caused by a dragon, not a demon. So Davian also confessed that he himself was the dragon. The assassin had now called the village elder to ask what was in the forest, but he also had almost no clues because the people here were forbidden to enter there. She ignored this and led the army there, bringing the elder to guide the way. But suddenly, a wooden stake flew and killed a soldier. Many wooden stakes then flew continuously and not even shields were useful. The elder was also hit by a stake and died. The assassin cast moonlight to illuminate an attack, but this method was useless, as an army of elves burst out to counterattack. The Night Silver Woods army was soon pushed back and forced to retreat. But before they could go too far, the assassin called the troops to return, and what they found was a haunting scene of corpses hanging as if defying them. As for Davian, the sorcerer had told him that there were a total of 8 dragons and they represented the pillars of the worlds. Terrorblade desired the power of all 8 dragons to recreate the world according to his will. The dragon hidden in Davian would temporarily prevent Terrorblade from finding him, but this was only a matter of time. He had placed an enchantment on the ring to help him avoid being possessed by the dragon, but this was also a temporary measure, because the longer it was suppressed, once it exploded, it would bring calamity to this entire world and he would die when it escaped. Rin was now praying to her own goddess. She discovered Davian passing by, so she hid. And as for that assassin, we now know her name is Luna. She now also begged for power from the Dark Moon Goddess so she could avenge her troops. The goddess allowed her to do whatever she wanted, as long as she kept love for the goddess in her heart. Marana now regained consciousness. She finds Marcy again and also the wizard who brought her to meet Davian. He asks if she still serves the Dark Moon Goddess, to which she confirms. Then he tells the truth about her, that she is a cruel being. She once heard a prophecy about the elves' army overthrowing her, so she created the army to purge the elves. And now, the loss of the lotus flowers is causing her to gradually lose her powers. That's why she is panicking and starting to attack indiscriminately. The elves' army is now constantly being hit by Luna's moonlight, and their formation is disintegrating. With nowhere to hide, they no longer pose any threat to her. As for Marana, she realizes that this wizard is actually the Chaos Mage, Invoker, and wishes to provoke the apocalypse. But he only wants peace. He will return the flowers to her, but on the condition that she must persuade her goddess to withdraw from where the elves are living. She still doesn't trust him, but he gives her time to think, because as long as she has not made a decision, the agreement with the shopkeeper will still protect her. She and Davian then stood still and talked. Marana now doesn't know if she is really perceiving everything correctly, whether it's the goddess she's been with for 10 years or the wizard she just met. However, Davian still trusts the wizard a little. Marana doesn't know what to do now, so Davian advises her to try to be a dragon knight. Davian feels that he is now very scared. The two then decide to kiss. Rin was about to attack, but was teleported back to the wizard's place. She thinks he is planning to return the lotus flowers to that goddess, but he has his own beliefs and wants her not to doubt his decision. Meanwhile, Luna found the location of the rebel leader. The leader believes that even if he dies, there will be many other rebels, but Luna killed the leader's comrades. She will let the leader live as a warning to those who intend to rebel, because there are many martyrs. But would anyone dare to see their comrades or family members die? Marana has now received the box containing the lotus flowers. Invoker locked the box and it will open when the Dark Moon Goddess's army withdraws from Elven territory. She accepted and Rin will be their guide. Both still hold grudges, but respect Invoker and follow the agreement. Invoker also realizes that Davian has not told anyone about him dying when the dragon awakens, so he keeps quiet for him. He will go with Marana and return to find him when she finishes her task. Thus, Invoker gave him armor to help him fight in case he transforms into a monstrous form and is naked when he returns to human form. Luna returned to find the goddess who is dissatisfied with Luna's cruel actions, but believes that Luna will find a way to obtain her forgiveness. As for Invoker, he has now contacted Terrorblade to propose a deal. Shortly after, Invoker went alone to face one of the pillar dragons. He confronts the ocean dragon and begins to bind it with his magic. After a fight, he tamed it, but his body is also exhausted. As for Davian, after that, he could barely sleep due to dreams that he would be swallowed by the dragon if he transformed. The next day, Marana came to tease Davian like a normal girlfriend, but he was just depressed and said he was about to die. She thought Davian was joking because he just woke up after being drunk. She then turned to pack her things while Rin came to tease Davian about arguing with his girlfriend. On the way, Rin constantly played with Davian, making Marana a little jealous. Davian noticed this, so he came to comfort his girlfriend. Suddenly, he rushes forward and tells the group to stand still. He detected some wind dragons, so he told everyone to stay together to avoid being discovered by them. He then realized that this was the dragons' hunting territory. They hunt based on the movements of their prey, so they must sneak and remain motionless when the dragons show signs of movement. But it's best to find shelter to avoid being caught by them. As for Invoker at this moment, he is exhausted and remembering his daughter from years ago. He brought her here, gave her a field of flowers and created this tower to be her home. He noticed red spots on his daughter's hand and asked how long this had been happening.
The girl said it was since she left her mother, which worried him very much. He was not sure what disease she had, but he needed to try to find a way to cure her. In the following period, he immersed himself in research to find a cure, but his efforts seemed to lead nowhere. Back to Davian's group after escaping the dragons, they decided to set up camp to rest in the forest. Marana now begins to show jealousy of Davian always talking to Rin. While setting up camp, Rin thinks Davian is lucky to have a girlfriend accompanying him, but he only admits that one of the two girls is his girlfriend. Rin told how she once had a group of lovers but all were killed by people from Nightsilver Woods. Marana got angry, claiming it was Rin's own fault as she had stolen the lotus flowers and unleashed everything. The two girls were about to shed blood when Davian stopped them. Rin then left and Davian reprimanded Marana for not telling him anything about the two meeting before. Originally, Marana wanted to wait and see if Rin was hiding something, but Davian blamed her for not telling him sooner. She tried to explain, but he barely paid attention to her during the trip. She asked why he was silent with her during the trip, but he didn't answer and went to look for Rin before she found any dragon. He went to call Rin because he knew she was hidden nearby. He believes that Marana had no bad intentions and advises her to return to camp because they have already lost enough. Already, Marana then confided in Marcy, but Marcy had already gone to sleep, so she also rested. Davian stood guard for a while, then also slept, and Rin was keeping an eye on the box containing the lotus flowers there. Returning to Invoker's story, he almost had no way to cure his daughter until one day he discovered that his daughter had found a type of flower, which instead of facing the sun was facing the moon. He realized what he needed to do, which was to take his daughter to find her mother, who is the Dark Moon Goddess. Back to Davian. Marana informed him that Rin stole the lotus flowers again. She entered the territory of the air dragons, but there is no need to worry because Rin is very difficult to catch. Rin ran to the river and was soon discovered by the dragons. Their strength is speed, so they dive very quickly. Rin must run quickly through the darkness because she has the ability to teleport a short distance if she is in the darkness. But as soon as she hid in the shadows, she dropped the box, so she had to go back to get it and was chased by the dragon. She then discovered a cave and aimed for it. Davian then saw Rin running to the cave, so he decided to run to help because it was a dragon's nest, not a normal cave. Marana then had to stay outside to deal with some dragons while Davian ran into the cave and saw a dragon fly out. He had to let it pass before following behind. At this moment, Rin had to hide in a small cavity, and Davian quickly ran there and wanted to open a path for her to escape, but she refused. So he also had to squeeze into that cavity to hide with her. He wanted to hold the box so she could escape, but she refused. Then he wondered if this box was worth her life. And she really was ready to die for this thing, so he decided to stay there and die with her. He began to argue with Rin, and she decided to give the box back to him to keep. She then teleported out and threw dragon eggs to attract them elsewhere. Davian also left soon after, but the dragon had returned, forcing him to confront it. but they didn't dare to approach because they saw the fire dragon inside him. Then he left and found Marana again. He knew he should no longer hide from her. Initially he was afraid that she would have to carry his burden, but he no longer wanted to hide from her. He told her about how he would die if the dragon escaped again. The group then continued their journey and Marana confronted Rin. The two girls decided to travel together out of respect for Davian. We return to Invoker, who years ago brought his daughter to the Dark Moon Goddess to ask for her help in curing the girl. Although facing a seriously ill child, she wanted a condition that both father and daughter worship and love her as a goddess. Although Invoker humbled himself to accept, the girl refused. She loved him as a mother, not as a goddess. She loved him but would not worship her. So the goddess left despite Invoker's desperate pleas, and now he drained the life force of everything around him to recover. Shortly after, we find Cadden again. He had entered the air dragon's cave and dealt with them quickly. He discovered that Davian had passed by, so he told his people to gradually move north. Davian's group now found the scene of hanged elf bodies. Rin went up to cut the ropes so Marana could bury them properly. They then arrived at a village that had been attacked by people from Night Silver Woods. The army quickly came out and fortunately recognized Marana as their princess, so they let the group pass. Afterwards they arrived at the camp and Marana met Luna again. She brought the box inside to confront Luna. The two never liked each other, so Luna kept asserting that it was Marana's weakness that had caused so many calamities like now. But Marana argued that the current suffering was due to Luna's cold nature. After much discussion, Marana brought the box and declared Invoker's condition. Luna seemed not to trust it much. Meanwhile, Rin and Davian realized they were being held by the soldiers. Rin could escape, but Davian didn't want to. She also couldn't leave because she couldn't abandon her people. Luna then went to report to the goddess and returned to tell Marana that tomorrow they would accept Invoker's condition and withdraw their troops. Back to Davian. Knowing that he was about to say goodbye to Marana, he was practicing his farewell words, but Marcy came to give him a goodbye hug. He then went in to ask Marana if she really wanted to go back to Night Silver Woods. She still believed that the goddess needed her. Davian said he would leave, although Marana thought he could go to Night Silver Woods with her. But he believed he was beyond cure and didn't want to harm the place she loved. He then said that if she ever needed him, she should get in touch and he would come to help. Meanwhile, Rin had infiltrated the prison to find the commander of the previous rebellion. She apologized for stealing the lotus flowers, which caused so many losses. She was trying to fix everything, but the resistance leader was very discouraged. She had accepted the fact that Night Silver Woods was the winning side. The elf had been hiding for a long time and taught humans about their dangers so that humans would not bother them. But now they were the rulers and stronger, while the elves were slowly dying. The soldiers then heard voices and entered, but Rin had already escaped. She looked at the children being gradually corrupted into followers of the Dark Moon Goddess, felt disappointed and left with Davian. Meanwhile, Marana and Luna took the box and began to open it. As soon as they offered it to the goddess, the box opened and the flowers were suddenly sucked into the sky. The blessing of the goddess of the Silverwood army had disappeared and the elves' army knew it. Marana knew that war was about to break out, so she called for a ceasefire and said that her side would withdraw. The elf had lost too much and now wanted revenge. All this scene was orchestrated by Invoker, and what he wanted was revenge against the goddess who had abandoned his daughter. Meanwhile, in the temple of the Dark Moon Goddess, the High Priestess suddenly transformed and became the demon Terrorblade. He had controlled and transformed the followers there into his army, but the goddess had descended and decided to confront Terrorblade. Meanwhile, Rin and Davian returned and found a chaotic scene there. The two then entered the battle. At this moment, Luna finds the leader of the rebel faction. She is confident that she can now fight on equal terms with Luna, who has lost her goddess power. However, Luna's fighting skill is still slightly superior as she manages to knock her opponent's weapon away. But at this moment, Rin returns and continuously teleports to strike Luna repeatedly. Luna is weakened by several injuries and then collapses. Rin thinks she has avenged her lovers, but her hands are truly stained with blood. Davian also rushed in here and notices Marana. She's coming to heal Luna, so he rushes quickly towards her but is blocked by many elves. With no choice, he removes the necklace given by Invoker to transform into a semi-dragon form. He maintains sanity while charging and then descends with a super powerful blow. Returning to Terrorblade, he continues to mention how the goddess abandoned his daughter to provoke her. She realizes that it was Invoker who brought Terrorblade here to torment her. But he and Invoker only have an agreement between them, the souls of his 7 children in exchange for the soul of this goddess. She then flies to the magic circle to escape Terrorblade, but he appears behind her and traps her. He punches her once, pushing her to the ground, and the magic circle above shatters. He reveals that a goddess without love like her is nothing but food for him. She now laments, but it is too late. As for Davian, he opened a path for Marana's group to escape, but soon after, Cadden's dragon hunting group arrives. He trapped Davian. The dragon tells him to release him so they can resolve their differences soon, but he came for Davian, not for him. He then releases some kind of smoke that transforms Davian back into human form. Davian is then taken away, while Rin takes the sealing rope given by Invoker and rushes out to find Davian. Meanwhile, Marana still doesn't know what happened in the temple but fears that something bad has occurred. Terrorblade absorbed enough fear from the goddess, so he abandons her and leaves. Shortly after, Invoker arrives to find her and finish the rest. Davian regained consciousness and finds himself in a cage taken back to Cadden's fortress once more. Rin is still following the group. Invoker has now taken over the Dark Moon Goddess's temple, and she's trapped in the tower where he once lived with his daughter. Invoker came to find her and believes that now she will be forgotten and lose her power. But she thinks that Invoker will not be able to fulfill his agreement with Terrorblade, so if he wants to he must resurrect her and restore her to the peak of her power to deal with him. But he doesn't care, because what he wants is for the goddess to die in oblivion. Outside, Mirana and Luna are still struggling to get out of the forest. The number of soldiers is decreasing day by day and the number of injured is increasing. Mirana wants Luna and the soldiers to rest for a while, but Luna almost ignores everything Mirana says. As for Davian, he is now constantly explaining to Cadden and the Knight Commander how dragons are not as dangerous as the demon Terrorblade, and that they need to join forces with the dragons to defeat him for now. But cooperating with dragons is the most ridiculous thing for a dragon knight, so his words are almost worthless. Cadden now finds his master, that old golden armor. He thinks Cadden wasted over 20 years of his life to get revenge on a dragon, but Cadden doesn't see the path he chose as a mistake. Cadden then finds out that Davian had a piece of flesh taken for experimentation. He warned the Knight Commander not to hurt Davian to avoid waking the dragon. Now he decides to trust Davian and tells him to meet him in the Great Hall when he recovers. Meanwhile, the Knight's Silver Forest soldiers found a place to rest tonight. This used to be a temple of the Dark Moon Goddess, but now it's abandoned. Luna no longer wants to believe in the goddess, but Miranda still thinks that even if the goddess is gone, the soldiers still choose to pray to her. During this time, Rin came to rescue Davian from prison. Davian asked why she followed him here, and she said that she and Miranda needed him. When he asked about Miranda, he learned that she was temporarily safe. Rin felt guilty about what had happened because she knew about the Invoker's plan from the beginning. Davian was shocked when Rin admitted this. He thought that maybe the head knight was right not to trust anyone outside the Dragon Knights. He then dismissed Rin, and soon after the head knight also released Davian. He asked if there was any way to extract the dragon from him, but the head knight was unsure and only brought some notes. These notes revealed that half-human, half-dragon beings like Davian had appeared before, but they were born with dragon genes instead of being possessed like him. However, there was a possibility that he was actually a person from the dragon clan and would never return to his original form. Later, Davian met his comrade Bram, who admitted to still being a bit worried about Davian's condition. Davian said honestly that he was still in control and would not harm Bram or anyone in the Night Order. He was then led back to his cell, while Rin remained outside observing the situation, waiting for an opportunity. Later, Cadden came to call people for a hunt when he suddenly heard that the head knight was calling for him. When he arrived, the head knight asked everyone except Cadden to leave. He revealed that he had just found a formula to turn Davian's blood into a super-strength serum. With this power, they would have the strength and regenerative abilities of dragons, allowing them to exterminate the dragon race to the last. But then Cadden left, and we found out that it was actually Rin in disguise. She was terrified by the head knight's desire. As for Miranda and Luna, they were now forced to find an escape route as they were about to reach the Wind Dragon hunting ground. Luna decided to split their forces. She would sacrifice herself as bait to allow Miranda to lead the others and escape this place. Meanwhile, the head knight had consumed a dose of the serum made from Davian's blood. He acquired the ability to regenerate and enhance his body as he wished. But before he could experience this for long, he returned to human form. The thirst for power made him want even more serum. Rin then came to look for Davian once more and wanted to warn him to leave. He didn't want to believe her, so Rin had to hug Davian and teleport him away. The head knight was starting to suffer side effects from the serum and began to vomit blood. He tried to reach the blood vial on the ground, and at that moment, Terrorblade's eyes appeared. Luna was about to reveal herself as bait when she realized that Miranda had left before her. Miranda was now facing the battle alone, and was almost able to single-handedly deal with all the elves blocking the escape route. She soon returned to Luna, and at the same time, Terrorblade in the head knight's body came to look for Davian to claim what was rightfully his. The entire fortress began to shake, and outside a horde of dragons was approaching. The castle then had to defend itself against these dragons. They were ice dragons, and anyone touched by their flame would be frozen. Once frozen, death was certain. Bram was trying to defend himself when he noticed that they had concentrated on one place for an all-out attack. Bram called everyone to retreat, but he himself was caught. Cadden ran to save Bram and then ran back inside before the gate closed. Meanwhile, Terrorblade revealed that he now had the power to manipulate the dragon, so either Davian handed over the fire dragon, or this would be the tomb for him and his comrades. When Davian demanded that he return the head knight, Terrorblade said that he didn't need to worry about him because he was planning to drain Davian's blood to create the serum of power. Davian then advanced to attack, forcing Rin to teleport him elsewhere. She believed that he shouldn't get involved in a battle he couldn't win. When he wanted to live or die with his Dragon Knight brothers, she reminded him that he was the one who taught her to value life. After that, an earth dragon appeared and chased them. The dragon was temporarily trapped, so Davian ran. He ran to find weapons. On Miranda's side, she found out that Luna had been infected due to her wound being exposed for too long. They knew of a nearby fortress and hoped it could treat Luna. The dragons had now begun to invade the fortress. The earth dragon then came to attack Cadden's group of knights. Cadden told his master to quickly find the Knight Commander and get more weapons to fight them. Cadden was quickly knocked down by the Earth Dragon. His master ran to fight it and managed to cut the Earth Dragon's head in half. But an Ice Dragon was about to attack from behind, causing him to lose focus and allowing the Earth Dragon to revive and tear off half of his body. With only Bram and Cadden remaining, he told Bram to quickly find the Knight Commander. Both temporarily escaped the dragons and left. Meanwhile, Miranda's group had reached the fortress they were heading for, She asked Marcy to blow the horn so that the other side would open the gate. Once inside, Miranda asked the captain to let them stay for some time so that the soldiers could recover. He couldn't decide, so for now he just told her to bring the people for treatment first. She informed him that the elf tribe would arrive soon and hoped they were ready to deal with it. But the commander was confident that no one could get them out of this place. Cadden and Bram had now arrived at the Knight Commander's room and saw a mess there, but it didn't seem to have been caused by dragons. Luna had only received first aid for her wound and needed to rest for a week to recover. But they were now very close to the border and would be easily attacked. Staying longer was dangerous, so Miranda decided that they would leave tomorrow. She then went to tell everyone and they decided to rest well tonight to leave tomorrow. At this moment, the captain came to meet Miranda and said that the commander of this place wanted to see her. She then entered the command room alone and found that the true commander had been killed. The assassin was an archer with the ability to turn targets into gold. She was a bounty hunter hired to bring Miranda back. Meanwhile, her soldiers and Marcy outside were drugged by the soldiers here. Davian had now recovered his armor and dragon shield. The Earth Dragon and Ice Dragon then came to attack, forcing him to use the shield to block, causing the Ice Dragon's attack to hit the Earth Dragon. But another Earth Dragon came. Bram and Cadden now had arrived at Davian's location. He then brandished his sword, cutting the wall in the Earth Dragon's head. He and Davian then faced the Earth Dragon, but the Ice Dragon still hovered overhead. So Davian was thrown up by Cadden to deal with it. Another Ice Dragon appeared and Davian threw a fire spear at it to knock it down. At this moment Terrorblade arrived. He invaded the minds of all 4 people, starting with Davian. Davian was destined to die but then transformed into a horrible thing that only knew how to slaughter. For Rin, she carried many stories about the moon in her head and imagined herself as a goddess. But in reality, she was just a monster. For Bram, he was someone who always did his duty, but just holding a sword was not enough to become a dragon knight. For Cadden, he was a lonely person. Of the 30 people who went to battle, only he returned. Terrorblade told them that Davian would bring disgrace to the Dragon Knights. Rin would only cause more deaths by believing Invoker's lies. Bram would always be in the shadows and die serving the glory of others. Cadden was so pathetic that he didn't dare avenge his comrades out of respect for the only brother he trusted. Finally, he gave the 4 a solution to solve each one's problem. For Davian, let the dragon possess him, and for the other 3, change their destiny and free themselves. He wanted them to let him possess them, but Cadden woke up and ran to stab him. Terrorblade was disappointed with Cadden, so he threw him against the wall. And he would have fallen from the fortress if Bram hadn't held him in time. He then began to suck the fire dragon from Davian, so Rin tried to split herself to attack him. He threw Rin away, so she had to teleport him very high. He then held him tightly to die along with the Knight Commander. Although she had stabbed his hand so that the commander's corpse would release her, she no longer had the presence of mind to teleport. As soon as they were about to hit the ground, Davian transformed into his dragon form to fly and save her. He then flew to deal with the remaining dragons, but at that moment a girl riding a dragon named Riley arrived to help the whole group escape. Davian wanted to go alone to deal with the chaos that Terrorblade had caused, but Cadden thought that him separating and going alone was exactly what Terrorblade wanted. Hearing this, he reluctantly decided to go with Cadden's group. Meanwhile, Miranda had been separated from her soldiers and Marcy. The 2 sides were being transported in different vehicles, and as Luna also had a bounty on her head, the hunter allowed her to go with Luna. Miranda's mount, realizing that her mistress was in trouble, immediately ran after her. At the same time, Invoker had come to find the Chaos Dragon to awaken it. The dragons gathered once again and called each other to rise up and fight terribly. They had been too complacent and now were forced to fight back. The Chaos Dragon still thought that his companions were all talk and no action, so he created a large explosion and sent the souls of those dragons to Invoker. However, Invoker then turned against him and struck him with an extremely powerful blow. As for Davian, he realized that the dragon tooth necklace had been left behind in the fortress. Riley and her dragon took them back to the cave, and Riley revealed that Cadden now owed her for the second time. Rin noticed that Davian seemed to be in the state of mind of someone who had suffered a loss and couldn't accept it. He still tried to act as if he was fine. He asked if Rin was hurt anywhere, but she wanted him to never keep in his mind the thought that he would hurt her if he transformed into that half-dragon form. Bram, while walking through the cave, found a library. Riley's dragon appeared and was revealed to be the author of those books. Back to Miranda, Luna had been taken elsewhere while she was brought back to the palace, which used to be her home. She then saw her father's sword, ran to cut her bonds and threw the sword to knock down the chandelier and escape. But she quickly found the viceroy who had previously looked after her. She was disappointed that he had served her father before and now was serving her uncle, who was trying to kidnap her. But he was serving her uncle according to the last wishes her father left. He then wanted her to stay here where she would be safe. Luna at that moment had been arrested and immediately demonstrated that she was the strongest person there by punching the prison chief in the mouth. A hairy old man named Rico then came to Luna and suggested that she had just made a mistake, because from now on she would have to sleep on high alert. But she was not afraid of anyone there. So whoever wanted to come, she was ready to face them. Cadden now thought that they needed to reclaim the fortress from the dragons soon because they needed the weapons inside. He wanted to gather more people, but Davian thought that they shouldn't delay any longer because Terrorblade was strong enough to defeat even the king of the Earth Dragon, so gathering more people would be useless. but Cadden didn't want the beast inside Davian to escape again. The two then argued and neither wanted to listen to the other's opinion. Riley then had to go find Cadden because she heard Bram's story. She thought that sometimes Cadden shouldn't be so dictatorial because it seemed that Davian really needed what he had lost. Davian then wandered through the cave and accidentally found a soul stone. It attracted him and Rin had to come wake him up. Davian then went to ask Riley's dragon, and she revealed that she used to be close and protect the soul stone because she was attracted to it. But after a long sleep, she saw the changes in human. From then on, she moved away from the soul stone and began to write books and recite poetry to experience life. She believed that Davian should also interact with that soul stone, and maybe it would really offer him the answer he wanted. The invoker had now sealed the dragon's souls in different eggs. The goddess of the dark moon was still walking through the tower and starting to remember her lost daughter. As for Miranda, she met her uncle again and felt no joy. She hated her uncle because she believed he had killed her parents to take the throne and now he was bringing her back to be a symbol of unification. Her uncle then left and the viceroy informed her that, since her father's death, there had been an internal division in the country. She refused to help her uncle because she would gain nothing from it. Furthermore, Luna and the soldiers of the Dark Moon Forest would also have to die because they were seen as enemies of the public. Since this country worshipped the sun, not the moon. Luna was now in pain and struggling. Prison chief returned to settle scores with her. In fact, they had known each other from 15 years ago, and the chief was very resentful because she left them behind and escaped at that time. But she still managed to knock down 2 men alone and was caught from behind by the chief. However, old Rico came to help Luna and she asked the chief if he wanted to join her team or not. Bram was sitting thinking when the dragon lady approached. She saw that Bram was different from the other dragon knights. He thought he wasn't a dragon knight but just a secondary character in someone else's story. She then gave Bram a ring and whipped him with her tail. A shield was created, helping Bram block the attack. She then wanted Bram to attack her with anything and he threw a book. She turned in defeat and said that now Bram was a true dragon knight. Davian had come with Rin to the Soul Stone. He still wasn't sure if he was Davian, a dragon knight or a monster in that body. But Rin thought that he needed to walk in the darkness to see the light, meaning that she wanted him to approach the Soul Stone and look inside himself to find the answer. As soon as he touched the Soul Stone, he found the fire dragon again. It told him that they were now one. Creature's blood flowed in him just as his blood flowed in the creature. It was always singing to him about how to defeat Terrorblade, but he couldn't hear, so now it would briefly say, he must find the relic of the sun god, the eye of the world. He then knew who he was and what he needed to do, so he gathered everyone and told them about the sun god's relic. Riley knew the place because it used to be her homeland until the sun god took it. He then realized that the sun god's relic was related to Miranda. Miranda had now called the viceroy to be found. She thought carefully and decided to accept her uncle's request. Miranda then went to find her uncle, who was planning to organize a national wedding for Miranda. But she thought that since she had agreed to his conditions, now he had to accept hers. He wanted a wedding, but she wanted an army. Meanwhile, the goddess blamed Invoker for poisoning their daughter with his hatred for her. But he thought that their daughter never hated her. The child always longed for the day her mother returned. She loved her mother until her death. As for Rin, she now heard that her people were about to go to war, so she had to go back to avoid it and couldn't continue with Davian. But he believed that he was fine and let her go. She then disguised herself and hid in a caravan to leave. As for Davian, he had planned with Cadden and Cadden gave Bram a teleportation scroll so that as soon as Davian got the relic, he could quickly join forces with Cadden. Cadden said directly that his teammates had been killed by the creature inside Davian, so he would never trust her. But Davian should do what he had to do. Riley then gave Davian a coin and told him to find her sister, who would help him meet the king. He then went to Bram to see how the preparations were going. Bram had finished preparing to go with him. Davian promised to protect Bram if he was eaten by the dragon lady. But she would never eat Bram because she considered him her life partner. Only now did Bram realize that the ring he received was an engagement ring. That night, a group of people from the elf tribe came to a dam near a human village to attack. They destroyed the dam and caused the entire village to be submerged in water. The next day, Miranda went to meet with the kingdom's council. They said directly that they would still treat her as a princess and follow proper etiquette, but that she would have no authority in this room. Later, the general heard about the elf tribe's plan to attack them, but they only needed to strengthen their defenses so that the elf tribe would abandon their attack plans. However, Miranda believed that once the elf tribe restored their dragon veins, they would name a new goddess, and at that moment they would be defeated. Therefore, the priority was still to attack first. The general rejected Miranda's opinion and suggested that she was just trying to prevent her own goddess from disappearing and that they didn't need to invade that forest. Miranda dismissed her and went to complain to the deputy general. She thought that the general had never known the harshness of a real battle and the only thing she had was wealth. The deputy general thought that she only made more enemies for herself and was as impetuous as her father before. Reckless actions would bring nothing, but Miranda preferred to act recklessly than to do nothing. Meanwhile, in prison, Luna spent a day observing the behavior and schedules of the guards. When she had enough information, she went to find Rico and the chief's group to start planning. That night, the dragon lady brought Davian and Bram out of the sun god's realm. She then transformed into human form to enter with them. At the same time, Miranda went to meet with the viceroy and thought that this country no longer needed a princess like her. However, life taught her that to succeed, she needed help and needed him to teach her so that she wouldn't follow in her father's footsteps from years ago. At that moment Davian's group had found Riley's older sister and had just met her. Davian and she seemed to have some familiar feeling. She then heard Davian's group's story and took the whole group inside. At the same time, Invoker had met with Terrorblade again. He thought that Invoker still hadn't handed over all 7 dragon souls to him, but Invoker only had an obligation to collect them, not to give them all to him. He knew well that Invoker was a cunning person and that cunning made it so that no one could touch him. However, he understood Invoker's nature, that he was just a lonely person. Although he had made agreements with Invoker in all spaces, Invoker always lied and changed the terms shamelessly, but he still believed that everything was under his control. He had mentioned Rin and knew her true name and where she was born, and soon Invoker would have to beg him to take the dragon souls. Davian had now reached an agreement with Riley's older sister. She promised to take him to meet the king to ask about the relic. However, she wasn't sure if he would get the relic easily. Davian believed that no one could refuse a dragon knight. However, that same night, Luna and the prisoners began a rise to escape. They had taken over the prison elevator and Rico had infiltrated the control room to bring them up. Soldiers were waiting up here to attack the elevator, but those inside had used the soldiers downstairs as shields. As soon as they escaped, Riley's older sister saw flares being fired and decided to take care of it. She then went down to the street and began to burn the escaping prisoners. Luna and Rico then changed direction to the castle to rescue Miranda. Davian discovered her, so he ran after her. Bram also followed but was blocked by the fire. Davian was approaching when suddenly Rico punched him, but Luna spoke to help him move forward. The three then found Miranda's location and wanted her to leave, but she refused because she decided to stay. Davian also entered, and before he could advise Miranda, she was hit by a golden arrow from that bounty hunter. Soldiers began to arrive, so Rico had to take Luna away from there. Luna decided to create a war to avenge Miranda, and Davian, who stayed behind, was now seen as the one who had harmed Princess Miranda. He didn't want to defend himself, so he resigned himself to being tied up. Meanwhile, the Dark Moon Goddess began to regret not having tried to save her daughter years ago. She regretted not having been able to do anything, but Invoker thought that she didn't even have the intention to try to save her daughter. Everything that happened to her from the beginning was because Rin had stolen the flowers, and soon she would become the goddess in her place. Rin was now with a caravan crossing the mountains when they were suddenly attacked by the elf tribe. She could no longer see people being killed, so she stood up to stop her tribesmen. But her efforts were in vain, and in the end, only a father and child she protected survived. But the father was also afraid because she was part of the same tribe as the savages who killed people. Meanwhile, Riley's older sister, also known as Lena, had returned and exonerated Davian because she knew that he was not the one who had hurt Miranda. Davian showed Lena the position where Luna had predicted that Miranda's shooter would be. He had never seen anyone shoot as far as Miranda herself. Miranda was now dreaming of her past. She had been very arrogant until she met Marcy. At that time, Marcy seemed quite miserable and could no longer speak. The Dragon Lady had now examined Miranda and found that her survival was a miracle because that arrow was certainly capable of killing her. But she survived somehow, miraculously. Continuing with Miranda's past, she remembered when her father, the king, taught her the lessons a king needs to know, that sometimes they must know how to ignore certain things. She was then informed that Marcy would now become her servant, and thanks to her father's lesson, she decided to treat Marcy more as a friend than as a servant. Meanwhile, Miranda's uncle wanted the viceroy to find someone to blame for the princess's assassination, because now they couldn't send someone to capture that bounty hunter. So the uncle needed someone to blame and publicly execute. Luna, in the meantime, had followed Rico to a place to hire bounty hunters. Rico had taken Luna to meet the shop owner and informed him that they were close to finding Venari, who had assassinated Princess Miranda. But he thought that the crime was already predestined to be blamed on both of them. So Luna only asked to buy weapons but had no money. Thus, Rico had to use the debt the shop owner owed him to deduct. Both then left and knew of no clue to find Venari. Suddenly they found the captain who had betrayed them in the fortress before. They followed him and knocked him out, then took him to a place for interrogation. She was about to pour hot iron on his hand, but Rico parried and wanted a less barbaric way. So Luna asked him to release him so she could negotiate. Meanwhile, Davian was still sitting next to Miranda's bed. The viceroy informed him that the king would soon meet with him. He then went out to talk to Lena for a while when the viceroy came to inform him that the king was ready to meet with him. We returned to see Miranda's past. One day her family's palace was attacked and her parents died. Therefore, this beast commander had to be responsible for taking her to the palace's emergency exit while he stayed to fight. But there were also enemies inside and they knocked down Marcy to capture Miranda. But Marcy suddenly awakened her power and ran to save Miranda. And the two then left together. Davian was now on his way to the king's room with Lena. But only Davian was allowed to enter. As soon as he entered, he asked the king to lend him the relic. But the king made everyone leave and asked why he needed it. He told about Terrorblade's issue and that the dragon inside him needed the relic to stop Terrorblade. But the king hesitated because his words were a little difficult to verify. He thought that if he didn't hand it over, there would be no world for him to rule. But he tried to portray himself as a supreme being. So Davian had to transform into a dragon and hurry to grab him and fly away. He took him very high and gave him one last chance. But he didn't want to hand it over because he was afraid that people would find out that he didn't inherit the blood of the sun god. so Davian didn't hesitate to let him fall from the top of the tower. Meanwhile, Luna had found Venari's location and ran to attack. She had dealt with the captain for betrayal and began to fight with Luna. Suddenly, flares were fired again and the man Rico was chasing unexpectedly let out a massive explosion of fire. Luna then woke up confused and surprisingly found Marcy again. Going back a little when Marcy and the soldiers were being taken away, Miranda's mount ran there to save them, allowing Marcy to return here. Lena had now entered the battle and ran after Davian. She tried to call Davian to stop, but he was now controlled by the dragon. Lena wanted him to wake up, but the dragon said that Davian had plunged deep into his consciousness and if she was smart she should hand over the reliquary quickly. But she wouldn't give anything and would bring Davian back. Then she advanced to face the flames and managed to get Davian out of there. So he woke up and was informed by Lena that the viceroy had covered for him, telling everyone that he was the one who drove the dragon away because they didn't want to reveal that someone close to the princess was involved in the emperor's death. However, now she was sure that the civil war would certainly happen. But Davian suggested that she could change everything if she stood up to unite this country, since she had power and the trust of the people. Besides having been the one who brought him back when he was about to be swallowed by the dragon, Luna had now taken Rico to the shop owner's house to treat his injuries. Luna had told Marcy that Miranda was dying. At that moment, the palace was also holding a funeral for the king. Bram suddenly noticed that Miranda was showing strange signs. The dragon lady opened all the windows to let the sunlight in, and surprisingly Miranda returned to normal. The viceroy was also surprised that she had recovered. However, at the moment, this needed to be kept a secret to find the culprit. Miranda then heard that her uncle was killed by a half-man, half-dragon. They couldn't speak directly for fear that information about Davian would be leaked. Meanwhile, Rin was walking alone in the forest when she suddenly found an old woman. They rested together overnight, and after some conversation, the old woman gradually reached Rin's mind. That's right, this was Terrorblade, and he had invaded Rin's mind, suggesting that she was putting her faith in a liar and that the invoker would always see her as a pawn to exploit. So, what she needed to do was stop listening to the invoker. Meanwhile, the general from the previous council now withdrew her troops, but the beast commander and Lena would not let that happen. Lena then went to find Davian and thought that she was wrong for having thought that without the king, the council would take power and turn this place into a better place. However, now the truth hit her hard. The noble soldiers now occupied the streets and a small spark would be enough to start a civil war. She had made her decision and chosen to become the regent of this kingdom, a person who would lead and command the entire country. She then went to debate with that general and the fight for the throne now became an election. But the viceroy and the beast commander had decided to bring Miranda back to the people. But Lena argued that Miranda had previously abandoned the throne and fled to the Night Silver Forests. However, now she wanted to claim it only for reasons of lineage. If she took power now, she would drag everyone into a war in the Night Silver Forests. All the officials and the people chose to listen to someone without power who stood up on her own like Lena instead of Miranda. And that general, surprisingly, also came to support Lena. So now she naturally became the leader of the country. Lena then stood before the people to assert her position and also went to Miranda to vent. She didn't think what Miranda was trying to do was wrong, but she didn't want to start a war with the elf tribe. So if the elf tribe invaded her territory, she herself would burn them. Miranda then left and found Davian again. She was very disappointed because he had caused many problems, from coming here to releasing the dragon to kill the emperor and making her country fall into this situation. Now she has no army to face the elf race and no longer believes that this is the Davian she knew. He used to fight for her and do his best to resist the dragon. But now he follows the dragon's order. That night Miranda found Marcy again and followed her to Luna's group. Luna informed her that she had two pieces of news. The good news was that they had tracked the bounty hunter's location, and the bad news was that the person who hired him was the same one who had been crowned that same day. The next morning Miranda promised to bring back an army to reclaim what she had lost. Luna once didn't understand why the goddess accepted Miranda, but now she understood and was ready to follow her. Meanwhile, Lena had retrieved the relic for Davian, but when he touched it and let the dragon inspect it, it seemed to be a fake. Or perhaps it wasn't fake, but there was never a reliquary to begin with. Perhaps even the dragon inside him wasn't sure what it needed. Now Miranda wanted to tell Davian the truth about Lena, but Bram thought that both Davian and he didn't see Lena as a bad person. Miranda thought that Bram was defending Lena, but he was defending Davian because Davian had a good eye for people. At the same time, Invoker had brought Rin back to his tower. He wanted her to correct the mistake of not bringing Davian when meeting her with the Dark Moon Goddess and regain her power, as she was the reincarnation of the Moon Goddess. Miranda had returned to find the viceroy and informed him about Lena. He believed that, even if the entire Senate trusted her, they might not be willing to turn their backs on Lena. But he had a way to help her. Meanwhile, Davian had given up on the artifact and Lena advised him to face the truth that there was no artifact at all. But he felt that he had killed someone and started a war. And now the world was about to be destroyed while he was here looking like a fool. Lena then confessed that the person who assassinated Miranda was herself, as she thought that by assassinating Miranda, the Senate would force the king to abdicate. But the king was killed by Davian. She had planned to lie to him but felt more guilty and lonely the more she hid it from him, so she had to confess. Davian then went out to find Bram and Bram, seeing that he knew the truth, felt relieved that he didn't have to tell him. Miranda then asked to be alone with Davian, and he apologized for not being able to help and for causing her so many problems. The invoker then told Rin about her origins, and now with the elf race in chaos, they needed her to become a goddess to lead them. What she needed to do was kill the Dark Moon goddess to regain her power. He would give her the power to do that. Returning to Davian, Miranda believed that the artifact was real because she had seen its power, but it seemed to have been swapped by someone. She needed to find someone who could give her the necessary information. She then went to the tavern to find the beast commander. She asked about what happened on the night the castle was attacked. He wasn't sure how her parents died, but only heard sounds, and the only ones with enough authority to access the artifact besides the king could only be the viceroy. Everyone then suspected that the viceroy was the one who swapped the artifact, because on the night Davian killed her uncle, the viceroy seemed to just stand by and watch. Meanwhile, Rin had gone to find the Dark Moon goddess and recognized her as the one who stole her lotus. She had a weapon ready and asked what else she wanted to take from her, but she just led her to her daughter's tomb. At that moment, she began to drain the life from the flower field and restore her power. Invoker had just noticed and arrived, but she had already left. He believed that Rin didn't know what terrible thing she had just unleashed on the world. The viceroy had found Lena. He believed that she was not worthy of being king because the king and the senate were a machine. Each person needed to know their job and operate it. King was a gear to operate the machine, not the one who drove it. Lena thought that he was forgetting his position, but he had the relic in his hand, so Lena's fire could do nothing against him. He would make her pay for daring to touch his princess. As for Rin, she still believes that she is not worthy of being a goddess and wants the Dark Moon goddess to continue as before. However, nothing will go back to how it was before. The next morning, Davian's group arrived at the viceroy's house to find him. They came to a door that seemed to be where the viceroy had hidden the sacred reliquary, but he had returned and informed them that he was not guarding it. Davian still argued that the relic in the palace was not genuine, but the viceroy claimed that it simply didn't work as Davian thought. The relic only works for the true heiress, Miranda, so he helped her become the new ruler. Realizing that something was wrong, they asked where Lena was, only to find out that the viceroy had killed her the night before. Davian, enraged, unleashed his dragon, but as he advanced, the viceroy blocked him and threw him through the other door. Inside, there were two crystals, red and blue. The viceroy then transformed into a demon. At that moment, Luna's group suddenly felt the goddess's power again within them. Later, the goddess came to look for Luna's group, but Luna and her forces now chose to reject such a tyrant. Enraged, the goddess withdrew her power. Luna's group continued to carry out missions for Miranda. The goddess then granted power to the soldiers held captive by the elves, who rose up and devastated the elf tribe once more. Terrorblade was confident that Rin no longer trusted the invoker, thinking that without Rin the invoker's plan would fail. However, Invoker always had contingency plans. Meanwhile, the viceroy was actually a dragon, and the ice dragon had to rush out to push him back, asking Bram to take Miranda to the palace and retrieve the relic. She then transformed into her dragon form to fight. But as soon as they left, Bram reconsidered. He wanted to help Davian, and the one who had agreed to be with Miranda didn't force Bram to follow her, so she let him go back. Soon after, the ice dragon was thrown out here. Bram ran to use the ring and create a shield to protect his love, but he grabbed her and threw her hard to the ground. The viceroy ignored Bram, seeing him as nothing more than a rat. Bram, heartbroken, ran to his love and wondered how he could help her, but she passed away shortly after. The fire dragon inside Davian now recognized its nature, and Davian finally understood the true nature of the relic. More precisely, the power of the relic had always been with them. What the dragon wanted was the power within Miranda, so it was willing to ignore if she died. However, Davian could not accept this. The dragon asked if he was willing to bet on the possibility of not returning if he gave it control, and he was ready. The viceroy had now captured that female general and chose her as the new regent. His requirement was that she bring the princess to him unharmed. Bram had used the teleportation scroll to bring Cadden here. Miranda was trapped at the palace gate because that female general had received orders to take her to the viceroy. She was about to use force to compel her, but the viceroy had arrived. Cadden wanted Bram to go with him to destroy the viceroy, but the fire dragon flew and wanted to negotiate a truce with Cadden to deal with the viceroy first. When the viceroy grabbed Miranda, the fire dragon intervened and breathed fire on his head. Miranda fell but was caught by Marcy. However, the viceroy caught the fire dragon and was preparing to attack, forcing Cadden to attack to redirect that breath. The fire dragon then spit fire to repel the viceroy. Miranda was now guided by the beast commander and his army to enter the palace. The two dragons were arguing and Cadden had to quickly advance to fight. The viceroy, or rather the thunder dragon, although attacked by both, still managed to grab the fire dragon and throw it aside. Even if Cadden tried to deliver a powerful blow to him, it was ineffective. The thunder dragon threw him away and began to emit a widespread lightning ball, forcing the fire dragon to protect Cadden. The viceroy then turned towards the castle. Meanwhile, Miranda touched the sacred relic and saw truths she had never known before. The viceroy had returned outside and thrown the commander aside. He entered and knew that Miranda had seen the truth. She fired arrows at him repeatedly, but it was useless. He then grabbed her and revealed that he was once one of the 8 dragons, the Void Dragon. But when he found those 2 spirit stones, he discovered the truth of life, to serve the sun. He transformed and served this country for 3,000 years, and she was the one he cherished most. At this moment, she let her mount and Marcy advance to attack him. Marcy managed to pierce his layer of darkness, but was soon captured by him. He squeezed Marcy almost to death, forcing Miranda to speak, wanting to compromise with him. But he ignored her and killed Marcy. At that moment Miranda awakened the power of the sun and incinerated him completely, but she could not save Marseille. When she left, she thanked Bram and everyone for helping her in this battle. The fire dragon also came to meet her and said that he could now rest easy, as she would be able to protect this world from Terrorblade. He also asked her to tell Davian that he was now free. The dragon then disappeared and returned Davian's freedom. Miranda then ascended the throne as queen and began to repair the country.